guys, welcome back to our channel. I'm Michaela, and as you guys can see, I don't have Ayla with me today because I am going to be filming my mental health journey for you guys today. These videos are super personal and super difficult to talk about and share, so I hope that we can just keep this a safe space for me to share this with you guys. I just want to say that everyone has a journey and everyone's journey is different. For example, go back to Ayla's mental health story and you will see that hers is completely different from mine, and that's just how it is. I also want to apologize if this video gets long or rambly because it is kind of a long story, I guess, that I'm going to be talking to you guys about today. I'm obviously not going to be telling you guys everything because this video would be 10 hours long. I'm 25 years old and I'm going to tell you from the start of my mental health journey to where I am right now. This journey is in no way over. I'm only 25 years old and I'm going to be continually growing and going through things for the rest of my life, and I just want to sit down and tell you guys a little bit about what I've gone through up until this point and hopefully help someone out there who might be going through something similar. So with that being said, I have my afternoon tea in my husband's mug. It says hubby on the front. I have a matching pink one that says wifey, but it's dirty, so you know, had to get tea in there. And then I also have my notebook filled with all the notes that I've made to film this video for you guys, so if I'm looking down at all, I'm just referencing my notes. If I leave anything out or if it's rambly, I am so sorry, but I'm gonna do my best to hit all the main points, and hopefully this will help someone out there who might be going through something. And with all that being said, let's just jump right into my mental health journey. Okay guys, so I have struggled with anxiety and panic attacks pretty much as long as I can remember. I think the earliest panic attack that I ever had, I was about 5 or 6 years old, and of course I was so young I didn't know what they were at the time, and I wouldn't learn what they were for many years to come. But I remember one time specifically, this is the first panic attack that I can really remember being super scary and super traumatizing, and I was figure skating because I figure skated throughout my entire life, and I wasn't feeling anxious or anything that I can remember. Again, I didn't really know what anxiety or panic attacks were at the time. I was skating and I was practicing a routine for a competition and I fell. Now, I don't remember the fall being particularly hard or hurting myself at all, but I realized that I couldn't catch my breath, and then everybody kind of saw me fall, so they all kind of rushed over and crowded me and were like asking if I was all right, and then it really became apparent to me that I wasn't really breathing. I was like gasping for air, I was sweating, even though I was freezing cold, I was shaking. So my coach actually took me off the ice and took me to my mom, and then my mom took me home for the day because I was just like done after that. But I remember just being so terrified because I couldn't catch my breath and I didn't understand why. I think at the time I thought maybe I hurt myself and that's why I couldn't catch my breath, but that is the earliest memory I have of having a panic attack, and again, I was 5 or 6 years old. Now, these panic attacks and anxiety attacks happened sporadically throughout my childhood, but I never really talked to anybody about them, specifically because I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what to call it. I didn't know how to fix it, and at the time, it was like late 90s, early 2000s, and mental health hadn't really become a big issue in society like it is today, especially in children. So at the time, it wasn't really something that people knew much about. It's kind of important for me to note that I had a pretty normal childhood. I was very fortunate to have my mom who stayed home most of the time because my dad owned his own business, and I had a very normal family life through my childhood, and nothing really happened through it. Like, we had a really strong family bond. We went on trips all the time together. My dad had lots of free time because he owned his own business, and that also made my mom not have to work, so she spent all of her free time with my brother and I. Now, like I said, these happened sporadically throughout my childhood, but I can't really give you much of a timeline then because it's years ago now, and like I said, I didn't know what I was going through. And at the time, we didn't have like computers and cell phones like kids do nowadays where you can just jump on and research and kind of figure things out. We didn't have that. I didn't have internet until probably about 7th grade in my house, and even then it was dial-up. So now I want to fast forward to 8th grade and then going into high school, because this is really when I can sort of pinpoint a timeline for you guys. In 8th grade, like I said, my father owned his own business, and in 8th grade he lost that business. So this was right before a start of a huge recession in our area, and my dad owned a business in the forestry industry, which the forestry industry basically shut down. There was no money in it anymore, and a lot of people in this area were highly affected by that, and my dad was one of them. Now, I just want to preface this next part by saying this is in no way my parents' parents' fault or anything. Things happen in everyone's lives. My parents are the greatest parents I could have ever asked for, and they gave me the most perfect childhood. There's not one thing that they could have done differently to change what happened to them and to us. I wouldn't change it because it made us all stronger as a family. My parents are wonderful, amazing parents, and this has nothing to do with them, but I need to tell you some things that happened in my family to give you guys a backstory on why I have such bad anxiety. So fast forwarding to the next year, which was me entering high school. Obviously, high school is a lot for a young teenager. Going into high school is stressful for everyone. So I had that regular, normal stress and anxiety from high school, and then I had anxiety on top of that, just regular anxiety that I've had my whole life. But with the recession and the loss of my dad's business, things at home started to change for us. It was a very hard knock. It was their livelihood, it was their future, and everything was just gone now. So things started to change at home, and that made me have a lot of anxiety because I had always been so sure that everything was going to be fine. Fast forward to grade 12. Now, a lot of things happened in between grade 9 and grade 12 to give me such a bad anxiety spell throughout high school. I had panic attacks and anxiety all through grade 10, 11, and 12, but I don't really want to get too deep into the factors that caused them because they're pretty personal. Let me just say that there was personal struggles. My dad, after losing his business, went through a lot of personal struggles. They went through a lot of struggles in their relationship, and we went through a lot of financial struggles as a family. And being a teenager and not really understanding that, I just wanted to fix it. And I thought that everything came, the strain on their relationship came from not having money. So money became a high source of anxiety for me, and it still is today. People, when they describe me, they say that I'm frugal, like I don't spend money unnecessarily, and I'm a saver. I think I am that way because of everything that happened, and I watched those problems almost destroy my family. That is one area of anxiety that I still struggle heavy with today and has affected me since my early teens to my mid-20s. Again, it was no one's fault. It was very situational. My family made it through everything, and I am so grateful for my parents for everything that they did during that time to get through it, and it just caused this anxiety in me that revolves around money and finances because I saw that as the thing that was destroying my family and my family's happiness. And obviously that wasn't the only thing, but that was just what I got in my head and what stuck in my head. And I know that every adult worries about finances, but I still have issues worrying about those kind of things. My parents, and honestly now in my own marriage, there are parts of this story that aren't mine to share, and I'm going to keep them private because they are not my parts of the story to tell. I can only tell you guys the effects that it had on me and my side of the story and my truth. So fast forward to grade 12. So all of this stuff with my family was building between grade 9, 10, and 11 and grade 12. But I just wanted to say that grade 12 was a really good year for me in school, at least. I had really good grades. I loved cheerleading. Had amazing friends. Ayla and I became very, very, very close in grade 12. We had every class together, and that's kind of where our friendship really started to grow because we'd known each other our whole lives, but we really started to spend time and get to know each other in 12th grade. With everything going on behind the scenes at home, the panic attacks and anxiety attacks got worse throughout grade 12. Now, like I said, fast forward a few months to graduation, everything seemed to be fine. Summer came, we spent a lot of time in our cottage, and then at the end of the summer we moved out of our childhood home into town, which really threw me for a loop because I was the type of person who was used to being able to go outside my door and go swimming in the lake or go fishing off the dock or jump on my four-wheeler and drive it around the yard or down the block or whatever. But we moved into town and there was no more of that. Everything was very different. Now, when I graduated high school, I had no plan for the future. I think it was because for a long time my anxiety kept me from wanting to make those kind of plans. So I hadn't made any. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life. I didn't know. Now, I think that's really common for a lot of kids who are graduating high school. I was only 17 when I graduated. That's a child. Between 17 and now, how much I've grown up and changed, it's crazy. I never would have thought at 17 years old that I would be sitting here now, happily married and living in my own house, a college graduate. I never would have thought that that was where I would end up. At the time, I had no plan. At the end of summer, like I said, we moved into town. Ayla left for university. So did a lot of my other friends, and I stayed home. I ended up getting 2 jobs. I started working at Walmart and I started working at the nursing home here in our town, and I just focused on work. And the anxiety and the panic attacks got worse. And I think in order to protect myself, I created a bubble for myself. So home and my bedroom was my safe place. Having 2 jobs and working all the time made my stress and anxiety go through the roof, and it eventually became a conflict. So I ended up quitting my job at Walmart, which did help a little bit. Like I said, I was just so anxious that I made myself a bubble. That whole year I just kind of stayed home and worked, and I didn't really have a life outside of that. It was a long year. I don't really remember a lot of that year. That was when I was 18. Then I stayed in that bubble, and I just kind of like protected myself by being in that bubble, or so I thought. And I didn't really notice that I wasn't happy. Now this is when I think the depression started to set in, because I had isolated myself a lot due to my anxiety and panic attacks. Now when the depression set in, it set in pretty hard, but it was definitely caused by my anxiety and the isolation that I had kind of put myself in. Okay, taking a time travel back to when I was really young, I had a seizure when I was a year and a half, and it was a really, really bad seizure that I definitely shouldn't have survived. Now, the reason I told you that is because when the depression set in, because I had no plan, I think that my brain kind of turned it into there's no plan for me because I wasn't supposed to live through that. That's the thought that I had in my head a lot. Nothing was ever going to change because there was no plan for me. I was just a mistake who slipped through the cracks and managed to live through something like that, but I should have died, and that's why there's no plan for me. I don't believe that anymore. Once I got myself out of the depression, that went away really, really fast, but I think just with the space that my head was in, that's how I felt. And now I'm like, I know now that I make my own plan, and I've learned that throughout the years, but at the time I didn't know that, and I thought pretty much every day, like, there's no plan for me and there never will be a plan for me because I'm not supposed to be here. After about a year of watching me isolate myself and just work myself to death, my mom intervened and went, what's going on? Because I was not like this before. I was a pretty social person. At the time, I couldn't see what she was saying because I was so deeply in it that I didn't see what she was talking about, so I got defensive with her and I wasn't very nice to her about it, and I felt very attacked. And I just want to put this in here now, Mom, if you're watching, I'm sorry for reacting that way, and thank you so much for opening my eyes to what I was putting myself through. And thank you for continuing to do that all the times throughout the rest of my life. Now, this didn't change things at the time because I wasn't ready to see it yet. That was right before I turned 19, and turning 19 was kind of the start of an awakening, because after that discussion with my mom, I started noticing things. Noticing what she had said was true, and I needed to figure it out, but I had no idea how to. I didn't really know what I was going through. I felt really alone, and I started seeing a counselor. Now, it took me a really long time to get into a counselor, and once I did, it took me a long time to open up to her. Right around this time, Ayla moved home from university, and we kind of started going through this together. We were both in a bad place, and we were both trying to figure it out and kind of help each other out of it. So I had already been seeing my counselor for a little bit when Ayla moved home. You know, I started when she moved home and I could see the pain that she was in. It really showed me that I was in a similar spot. 2 totally different stories, but kind of seeing a reflection of that sadness in someone you care about kind of wakes you up a little bit. So that opened my eyes even more. And I also wanted to help my best friend. So I told her that I was seeing a counselor, and she ended up going to see the same counselor as well. That year kind of passed with just kind of trying to figure out how to fix things, because at 19 years old, didn't know what was really happening with me. Still didn't really know what anxiety was, still didn't really know what depression was. I continued seeing my counselor, but like I said, it took me a really long time to open up to her. But when I finally did, it was like the floodgates just released, and I told her everything. And by this point, I was turning 20. Once I finally opened up to her, I can't even explain to you guys how amazing that felt. It was like just like this like huge weight like lifted off my shoulders, and I've never been the type of person to talk about what I was going through. Like I said, I didn't know how. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know that talking about it with someone would make me feel so much better. And that's when I started researching and learning and, you know, really starting to work on myself. And I realized that I had a lot of forgiving to do. I had to forgive everything that had happened. And with my family life in high school, even though it was no one's fault, and I didn't realize that I was harboring so much anger because it wasn't anybody's fault, but I was angry. I was angry for the things that I had missed out on because I spent so much time being anxious and upset about things that happened. So I forgave a lot of people in that time. And I think most importantly, I forgave myself. Throughout that fall and winter, I continued to see my counselor, who helped me through and got me to a stable place where I felt better. I was still having anxiety and panic attacks, but I felt so much better. And I actually actually started making plans, and one of those plans was to go to school. So making that decision was fun, especially because Ayla and I made that decision together. We both applied to a school and we went to the same school together, and we both got accepted and started planning and packing and applying for residence and all that kind of stuff. And it really, for the first time in my life, I felt like I made a plan for myself, and I started forming this plan, and I could have this plan and I could make my own plan. And like I said, for the longest time I had felt like there was just no plan for me and that there would never be a plan for me. And that was when I realized that I can make my own plan. And that was why there was no plan for me, because God or whoever or whatever you believe in had given me the freedom to choose, and I just thought that he had forgotten me. And I realized that it was a gift and not a burden. And that made me so happy to know that I could choose a better life for myself. And it was so nice to finally have come out of that depression enough to see opportunity. Wow. So this was early September of 2015, and I was 20 years old, and we moved to go down to school in Southern Ontario. We moved into our residence, and let me tell you guys that even though it was hard leaving my life here and my family here, moving to London was the best decision that I ever made for myself, and that those 2 years were amazing. I had the best time with my best friend at my side. I made a whole new set of friends. I loved my program. I was so happy. I was healthy. I was just like having so much fun. They were 2 of the happiest years that I have ever lived, and I'm so glad that I made that decision to go and didn't let my fear and anxiety stop me from doing that, because I grew so much as a person and I was just so happy. So now we graduated college in 2017 and I was 22. So then we moved home. Moving home from college was really exciting, but it was also really sad. So it was exciting because I was going back to my hometown, which I loved, and to see all the family and friends that I loved and I grew up with, and that was exciting. But it was sad too, because now I had to leave behind my boyfriend and my friends and my like my little college family that I had built for myself over the last 2 years, and leaving a program in a school that I fell in love with. So it was sad moving back home for those reasons. I moved back in with my parents in April of 2017. Then we went back down to London in June of 2017 for graduation. That was an awesome trip. I loved every minute of it. And Zach came to visit us in July for 2 weeks, which was amazing. That summer was really fun. And then he went back home, which was hard. It was always hard to say goodbye to him when he was coming and going. And I started a new job. I got a job as a front desk agent at a hotel, and I liked it. Zach came back to visit me in September for my birthday, and I went down there to visit him in October for his birthday, and then the long distance was just getting to be too much for us. And we finally decided that he was going to move here. November of 2017, he moved here. We lived with my parents for a little while. In April, we started looking for houses. We found the house that we are currently living in, and we moved in May of 2018. We finally had our own space. We could finally grow as a couple a little bit. All this time, I was growing more and more unhappy in my job, just because my anxiety had started to come back a little bit more, and I decided to get a new job. So I didn't quit my job at the hotel. I got a new job that I'm currently still working right now, but I quickly realized that that job wouldn't be enough to sustain on its own. So I kept both jobs, which was a big mistake. Now, fast forward to the fall of 2018. I was mostly working at the college and picking up a few shifts at the hotel here and there. On my birthday, Zach and I got engaged, and we were super excited. And then once we were engaged, but I decided to keep both jobs because I figured, like, hey, I can make a bunch of extra money for the wedding and it'll be great. So I started working myself like crazy. Any day that I had off, or any time that I had off from the college, I was working at the hotel. So I'd work at the college from 8 to 4, and then from 4 to 10 or 11 at night, I would work at the hotel. And I didn't work at the college most weekends, so I would work at the hotel on the weekends and then go back to working the double shifts on the weekdays. And it continued like that through the rest of 2018 into 2019. Now, 2019, let me tell you, was a year. I really want to preface this with saying there were outside factors that really affected my mental health in 2019, but most of this was my fault. It had nothing to do with my relationship. I was so excited for my wedding. It put a little bit of stress on me, but that's normal for weddings. Everything else in that year, it was a really hard year for me, and I know it was a really hard year for a lot of people. So I worked myself pretty much into the ground, past the point of exhaustion and burnout, all the way through 2019. I barely did anything up until the summer of 2019, so June 2019. This was when everything with the wedding started to set in, and I was getting stressed about the wedding coming up because weddings are stressful, and I was working 2 jobs, plus I had picked up a 3rd job that I was really excited for, but I shouldn't have done. I was doing nothing but working, and I was not taking care of of myself. I was not eating healthy. I was barely doing my skincare routine. I was just not taking the time for me. I was working and focusing on everyone else in my life and my wedding. And that's what I do. I focus a lot on my people, and I barely ever make time for myself, and that is one thing that I need to work on. I worked all the way to June of 2019 without realizing that anything was really wrong, because I was kind of just going through the motions. On June 13th, I worked a double shift. I worked from 7:30 in the morning, and I was supposed to work until 11:30 that night. I ended up getting off early because I was the second on shift at the hotel, and it was super dead, so she was like, you know what, go home early if you want. I called Zach. He pulled up to pick me up. I walked out through the automatic doors, and I had a panic attack. One of the worst panic attacks that I've had in a long time. It was so bad that I couldn't get control of my heart rate. I was hyperventilating. Zach took me right over to my parents' house. My mom couldn't get me to calm down. Nothing could get me to calm down. I was just like, I couldn't breathe. And then all of a sudden my heart was like, started to skip a beat, and that made me even more anxious and nervous. So my mom took me up to the hospital to get me to calm down. They gave me some muscle relaxers to untense my muscles because I was so just like tensed up. They put a heart monitor on. They gave me some medication to calm me down. I can't remember what they gave me exactly. I don't remember a whole lot of this, but it was really bad. I had to call in sick to work the next day, and I was sleeping in. And then at about 1 o'clock that afternoon, Zach showed up home from work, which was really weird. It was a Friday, so he doesn't typically come home from work on Fridays because his lunch is only half an hour, and I could tell that there was just something wrong. He came in and he told me that his grandfather had passed away. Fast forward to July, Ayla and I were in the city for wedding dress alterations and bridesmaids dress alterations, and my mom called me and said that my grandma was not doing well. And it was a Friday again. We rushed back to the town that my grandmother lived in, and 2 days later my grandmother passed away. And it was just like boom boom. And she passed on Sunday, July 7th. I was there for the whole thing. I stayed for my mom because I knew she wasn't going to be strong enough to stay by herself. I knew that my grandma was terrified of dying. She always had been, and I didn't want to not be there for her in that time. So I stayed through the whole process of that, and that's a whole other side tangent in my life, that things that happened with my grandmother that I'm not going to get into right now because it's just a lot, and this video is probably already an hour long. But I harbored a lot of guilt after her passing because I hadn't spent enough time with her, and you know, I hadn't talked to her in a long time and told her that I loved her. This was the first real death that I'd had in my family of someone who was close to me for a long time, so that obviously played a huge role in it. And I was sad because I was getting married in 2 months, and she was so excited to come to my wedding. So it's July of 2019. Zach has lost his grandfather in June, and I lost my grandmother in July. I kept working the 2 jobs all the way up until I got off for my wedding. A couple weeks off, which was really nice. I had my wedding. We did everything that we wanted to do. My wedding was perfect. It had nothing to do with any of this stuff. It was like the most amazing weekend experience that I have ever had in my life, and there was so much love. And if I could just take 5 minutes and go back to that day, I would hug everyone a little tighter and enjoy every moment of that day because it was perfect. It was the most perfect day that I've had in my life in a long time, and it was just filled with so much love, and that's what I really needed at the time because I hadn't realized I had been working so hard that I hadn't realized how down I was. Again, fast forwarding to October of that year, about a week and a half after the wedding, I went back to worked the 2 jobs again, and then I just had a total breakdown. I had a panic attack again, and I was just beyond exhausted. Like, I didn't even realize how exhausted. And my mom took me to my nurse practitioner, and she pulled me off work for 3 weeks. And I just honestly slept for 3 weeks because I just hadn't had any downtime since everything happened. And then in mid-October, we went down to London to see Zach's family. They held a reception for us for our wedding. It was beautiful. It was a really good time to see them. And then we came home, and I was still off work. I was pretty much off that whole month of October. This was kind of when I really realized that I had gotten myself into a low point again. I had worked myself into a depression again. My anxiety came back full force. The panic attacks came back full force. Again, I want to say this has nothing to do with the part of my life of my marriage or getting married or anything like that. That part of 2019 was wonderful, and I wish it didn't simultaneously happen in the same year. That was one of the worst years of my life. So now we're in end of October. In November, I went back to work, but I only went back to work at the college. I couldn't handle the 2 jobs anymore. It was too much. The doctor straight up told me that I had to leave one of them. It was not worth it. I was risking my health and my mental health, and I had to. And I wasn't happy. I could tell that I wasn't happy. I didn't know how to fix it yet again. I felt very similar to the way that I had felt when I graduated high school. There was a few other things that happened during that time period that were awful. Now, fast forward to December of 2019. On December 16th, my grandfather passed away. I don't think to this day that I've said that out loud yet. My grandpa was like a second dad to me, and same with my grandma. She was like a second mom. They were like second parents to me. I was always with them as a kid, and now they were both just gone in less than 6 months. I wasn't there for my grandfather like I was for my grandmother. I wanted to be, but at the time there was a really bad snowstorm, and he was not the kind of person who would have wanted all of us there. He was very selfless, and he had my mom and my aunt there, and my mom let me say goodbye to him over the phone. I miss hearing his voice all the time. Now, I mentioned that I had kind of a complicated relationship with my grandmother, and that did, towards the end of their lives, affect my relationship with both of them, because within the last year, I was working so much that I didn't have time to go and visit all the time, and I didn't make it a priority because I was angry with what had happened throughout my whole life with my grandmother. And that is a huge, huge guilt and regret that I am harboring still. I should have just like picked up the phone and called them. They lived about an hour away from me in a different town, so obviously working the type of hours I was working was really difficult to find time to go visit them, but I could have like picked up the phone and called them, or made more time to answer when she tried to call me, or something like that. I'm sorry, this kind of sounds like a pity party in my head. I'm really just trying to tell you guys the factors that have affected my mental health up until this point. So this is December of 2019, and then I was struck with this big lump of guilt. Neither of them wanted funerals. I hadn't really got to say goodbye. I still feel guilty. I just want to tell you guys that if you're in a similar situation, don't take time for granted, because you never know when it'll be the last time that you get to talk to them. Christmas happened. We were pretty happy around Christmas time, but I'm always pretty happy around Christmas time. Christmas time's like my favorite. And then January 2020 hit. And January and February of 2019 were when I really started to realize that I was in a depression again, and I started to try and actively pull myself out of it. Now, it's currently May of 2020. As you guys know, the world is in a pandemic, and that is also affecting mental health. But between January and February and March and April, I have been doing a lot to take care of myself. However, at the beginning of March, I lost another family member. That is 4 deaths in my family in less than a year. And it is really the first time that I've dealt with people close to me passing and being at an age that I can comprehend it, because the last person that was kind of close to me, I was only 5 when they passed away, so I was pretty young. And just not having any closure with my grandparents, it's a lot to try to wrap your head around. Sometimes I forget that they're all gone, and I'd never really dealt with grief before like this, on this scale, in such a short period of time. I'm still dealing with it. I'm not over it by any means, and I know that grief you don't get over. You just kind of learn how to live with it, and I know that I'm gonna miss them all for the rest of my life. So, but it's just another hit on my mental health that I don't really know how to combat yet. It took me all the way till November of 2019 to realize that I had dug myself back into a hole with my mental health. So now I'm feeling better. I'm starting to feel better. I'm hoping that I'm on the upswing. I'm starting to actually learn to take time for myself, which is really important. You can never neglect yourself for anything. At the end of the day, you need to make sure that you're okay, because that's the most important thing. You can't care for other people unless you care for yourself. And for a long time, all I did was work and care for other people, and I totally neglected myself. And you can't pour from an empty cup. Well, my cup was completely empty, and I just continually tried to pour from it. Now I'm in the process of rebuilding my mental health and self-esteem. I'm not really sure what that looks like and what that process is. It still hits me now and again, and I feel like I would probably get out of it faster if the world wasn't going through what it was going through right now, because having a lot of time alone with working from home, and you know, these circumstances are totally new and totally unprecedented, that it's just a lot on everyone. So I'm trying to be kind to myself and tell myself that it's not my fault if I feel sad right now, that it's what's going on in the world right now. A lot of people are feeling down and feeling sad, and that once this is over, I can take more steps to help my mental health. I am taking steps right now actively to help my mental health. For the first time in a long time, I'm taking care of myself, and that feels good. I have a lot of people to thank for helping me to pull myself out of this now. My husband has been amazing. He always is. Ayla, amazing. She always is. I don't know what I'd do without those two in my life. I genuinely don't. My parents, they're both amazing people who have helped me through everything in my life, and I love them deeply. And countless other family friends, family that help me all the time. I'm not going to name them just because, you know, not everybody wants their name displayed on the internet. But just thank you everyone for that. Yeah, I think that's fast forward to now, May of 2020. I'm feeling pretty good other than what's going on in the world right now, and I don't really know what else to tell you guys. I'm sorry if I missed out on a lot of things to telling you guys. I'm sorry if I purposely didn't mention certain things, and that's just because I don't feel like they're mine to tell, and I hope that you guys understand that. This is my story. This is the journey thus far. I'll do an update next year for you guys during Mental Health Week next year if that's something that you guys want. Again, sorry if this video is rambly and I left out some stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope that it helped someone out there. If you guys are going through anything, just know that you're not alone. You will get better, and take care of yourself, because that is one of the most important things that you can do. I think I've been rambling enough for you guys. I'm sorry if this video is super long. I'm gonna wrap it up here. Okay guys, so that was my mental health journey. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm sorry if it was long and rambly and I got distracted and I cried a lot. It's just a really heavy story to tell. It's a lot of personal information to put out there, and I hope that it can help at least one person. We have a few more days left of Mental Health Week, so make sure you stay tuned and come check those out. If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up. Also, subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so that you're notified every time that we upload, because we have a lot more content coming your way very soon. We have the rest of Mental Health Week and then new videos coming out after that as well. Also, jump on over to our blog because we have been posting a ton of content over there. We have been really loving that new platform that we have to talk to you guys with, so go check it out. I will put the link down in the description box below. I will also include some helpful links for you guys down below, and I just wanted to say again, we are in no way mental health professionals. Every view and opinion expressed in these videos throughout this week have all been through our personal experience and personal opinions. Just keep that in mind. Also, leave a comment down below and tell us any other videos you might want surrounding mental health, or some blog post ideas surrounding mental health that you guys might want. With that all being said, I hope you guys like this video, and I will see you in tomorrow's video. Bye guys!